That's a good sense of what you guys are doing. What should homeowners be doing right now?
Well, one of the big things that we're trying to highlight is
looking at the number of trees, all of them that are all fully leafed out. We haven't seen a color change yet. Is that going to be a factor? And does that mean you're anticipating perhaps a large number of outages?
Absolutely.
What should they do at that point?
Well, there are a number of steps someone should take.
It does go out. What kind of restoration times do you think we'll be dealing with?
It's a little too early to say. I think.
This is John Breed. Thanks so much there from Central Maine Power for joining us and let us know how you guys are preparing and how the folks there in Maine should stay on guard from this storm.
Yeah, all good points there. You can get the very latest on Lee as well. With
to the northern coast here, northeast coast of the U.S. right now. You can sort of brush by Bermuda, even though you can see it's still pretty far away, about 250 miles or so to the southwest. Impacts being felt at this hour.
When you see it on satellite, you see just how big Lee is, and the cloud shield is huge. Plus, it's actually kind of tangling up with the front a little bit now as well, and so we're getting just a lot of influence out there across the entire Atlantic. But just to track it, so by Friday morning, it's picking up a little more speed. It really starts accelerating by Saturday morning.
Yeah, this thing's going to be hauling as we work our way through the day Friday and into Saturday, then really speeding off towards the northeast there through the Canadian Maritime. So yeah, we are certainly going to be noticing a much faster pace in the coming days. But there's the satellite view here, and again, pretty expansive view of how expansive this system is. There's Bermuda, and you can see where the center of the circulation is there, but we're already experiencing 46-mile-per-hour wind gusts there on the island.
Yeah, and there is a little bit of shear affecting the south side of the storm. We're getting maybe a little dry air working in as well, but you can kind of see the front and where the clouds match up from the clouds from Lee and then the cold front that's sitting just off the coast.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty amazing how that all comes together. All right, well, tropical storm warnings in place. Bermuda, you'll be dealing with tropical storm conditions throughout most of the day as this system moves on by. Again, missing the core of it, but again, it's still a large system, so things are going to be quite breezy throughout the day. There's a buoy there just west of Bermuda, right now measuring a wind gust of 60 miles per hour.
All right, to again mention that front, it's off the coast, leaving behind some really nice weather along the eastern seaboard. We're dry everywhere with the exception of Bar Harbor, still getting a little rain in Maine from that front here, but you know, you can see the influence. The front, the showers associated with that, and then there's Lee to the south.
Yeah, exactly. So right now, beautiful weather, but we'll see conditions going downhill. Heads up, tropical storm watches and hurricane watches, they are up for parts of the New England coast. So in these areas, at least, tropical storm conditions or hurricane conditions are a real possibility.
Let's talk more details about where Lee is going this weekend. Greg, here, just looking at that track now, you know.
Full weather right now, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of deceiving. You get out there and it's beautiful, beautiful times. But yeah, things are going to start to certainly move downhill out there at the very least in the waters. And then some of us are going to be watching the clouds and some of the rain and the winds picking up too.
So we're starting the future radar clock at 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon. So you've got today, you've got most of tomorrow. There's nothing showing up on the radar. Here comes those extreme outer bands from Lee. This is now early on Saturday morning, about 4 a.m. Likely to get some showers, tropical storm force gust, a possibility.
And you see the movement of that sort of far outer fringe of the rain. It's having a hard time making its way westbound into a spot like Boston. But again, just a little bit of a wiggle to the west a bit more, and you bring in a bit more rain into the city of Boston. So those kind of fine details really hard to figure out, at least right now, in terms of how far out to the west some of that rain is going to make it.
Based on all the timing right now, by Saturday night, all the risk is out of here. And in terms of rain amounts, it's probably less than an inch most spots, although out towards the Cape, we could get more than an inch of rainfall. It's possible.
Yes, absolutely. As far as the winds are concerned, again, looking and starting out, basically getting in towards this evening, not really dealing with a whole lot of wind out there for you, but we will start to see as we work our way on into that Friday time period, that's when things start to change. Friday afternoon now, we're starting to see, again, some of those areas that are jutting out a bit. Those are the areas that will start to feel the wind impact first.
Yeah, I mean, we're just going to have a strong pressure gradient as well, thanks to the high pressure building in way back there. And of course, Lee, the strong low pressure over the ocean, winds 40 to 50 miles per hour in Provincetown and coming from the north. So that's going to send water concerns kind of into the Cape, the middle and lower Cape in there.
Kind of driving down. And yeah, that's where the at least storm surge forecast is the highest from the system of 2 to 4 feet in a few of those areas there. Possibility, yeah.
So then by Sunday morning, we'll start to see the winds start to taper down a little bit here. Still maybe running about 25 to 30 miles per hour, but beyond that, we'll be looking at improved conditions.
All right, moving northbound now, getting up into Maine, you'll see see your shower activity on the increase again late Friday night, getting into Saturday morning. Starting to see some of the rain picking up in intensity as we move our way through your Saturday.
Really spreading throughout the state. And these rain bands will contain with them at least tropical storm force wind gusts that will be a concern for trees coming down and power outages.
Absolutely. Now, I guess the best news here is this thing is going to be moving, so it's not stalling out, hanging around forever. By the time we get to your Sunday morning, we should be done with the rain and the impacts. But maybe a couple of inches of rain there in eastern Maine.
Well, September is peak time for hurricanes.
Yeah, we've partnered with T-Mobile to bring you the science behind how hurricanes can begin to help you stay connected and also be prepared. Meteorologist Alex Wilson has more. If getting into the waters, just plan on not going into the water this next few days.
Between the size of the waves and the rip current risk is up there, you know, especially the Outer Banks. You're going to see some of the biggest waves, and so visually, I think you'll get a clue to not go in. It may not be as obvious, I think, down the coast in Florida.
Yeah, these are areas where you head outside, the sun's going to be shining, really looking beautiful, and you don't get that thinking in your mind that something might be going on in the waters.
Yeah.
So yeah, even there, we got to be careful.
Right, the rip current risk is up, and you know the waves will be increased as well. We have high surf advisories that extend South Carolina, Georgia, all the way down through the beaches here, all the way down to West Palm Beach, actually.
Yeah, so I mean, just goes to show you how far-reaching the impacts, even though indirect, they will be here from Lee, this expansive system. Already seeing some of those wave heights. I mean, closer to where the center is, 40-foot wave heights showing up there. So now we won't be talking 40-foot waves coming towards the coast.
Thank goodness.
But nonetheless, they will start to certainly increase. We're already seeing 7 up to even 12 there just off the coast of the Outer Banks.
And breakers may be up to 12 feet. That's possible in the Outer Banks, and that may mean some overwash on Highway 12 in North Carolina. You know, we often get this as a problem when there's big storms, ocean storms, whether it's a nor'easter or a hurricane.
So here we are moving our way through the evening hours as those waves continue to increase here coming into the coast. We will start to see things getting improving here along the southeast coast throughout the day on your Friday as everything propagates off towards the north. Again, an improved situation heading into the weekend.
It'll probably take until Sunday morning, though, out there in the Outer Banks to really see some full improvement coming in. So, you know, got to wait till everything pulls north. The ocean takes a minute to settle. So, unfortunately, the next couple of days just not going to be a lot of swimming happening.
And we can say the same here for us farther to the north. Today's rip current risk high once again for a lot of the middle.
What's ahead?
Yeah, we have extended our day so that you have the information that you need to stay safe. And a lot of the focus is going to be there on the New England coast where this thing's going to get very, very close. Regardless of sort of the exact path, the impact's so widespread from this thing.
We're seeing that now with the hurricane reconnaissance in there telling us that the strongest winds are not near the center. They're maybe 100 miles away from it, the strongest winds. So that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, spreading out. You actually see it kind of filling up the ocean with clouds.
Right.
It's a very big system. And so we'll talk more about some of the impacts. We have about 48 hours or so from landfall from Lee. Current risk and the high surf advisories all the way down the coast into Florida. First up, the rip currents. And you can see down south of Vero Beach, we've got those rip current concerns stretching up the Florida coastline. Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina beaches all have a high risk of rip currents today. Now, we're going to be watching for that. You know, even though Lee is hundreds of miles off the coast, we know the ocean gets churned up by these kind of things. We've seen it with Franklin. We've seen it with Idalia. And now we see it with, of course, Lee. The shape of the coastline matters somewhat here, especially in areas where you have maybe like a flat run-up going to the coast. That can make it even worse. When you have winds onshore, which we don't have that exactly, but that would actually even exacerbate the rip current risk when you have that push of onshore wind and the buildup of water and then it pulls back away from the shore. But just in general, the fact that we are churning up the water out here is going to be increasing that rip current risk. The waves are up. We've got 40-foot waves there, the most significant wave heights near the center of the circulation of Lee, but surrounding it, you can see we've got 10 to 18 and even getting closer to the coastline, getting into some bigger wave heights right now. Look at this, measured just offshore, 12-foot waves off the Outer Banks. We've got 7-foot, not too far there from the Wilmington beaches, and same thing getting down the coast here off the coast for now, Myrtle Beach. But it's possible even onshore breakers will be that big in the next day or two. So watching these waves is an issue. That's why the high surf advisory is up, making sure that kids aren't standing too close to rocky areas where they could get pulled into the water. I know they often, adults too, actually want to see the breaking surf. It can be certainly very visually stunning. stunning, but it can be dangerous. So just be careful out there. We were going to be watching those coastal concerns all the way through Friday, and then Saturday things start to improve. Sunday, I think, is when we'll most notably see the improvement. Remember the flags? Red flag means dangerous conditions, knee high, too high. Double red means the beaches are closed to swimming, which I think we're going to see those here thanks to the rip current risk. It's going to be out there getting into the next few days. All right, so that's kind of the here and now for what we are monitoring for impacts. Let's talk about the track of Lee. Is there anything you think that could really throw a wrench into the forecast now? We're only 48 hours away.
Right. Not so much anymore. There was some, a couple days ago, there was that risk that it would maybe take a more of a left or west turn and make landfall in New England. That appears much less likely now. Good news there for many of us, I think.
Right. I think so, too.
Yeah. All right. Let's have a look now at the hurricane.
All the water problems that we could have here into New England. Let's start with the Cape and the storm surge watch. That is up for parts of it. We're looking at the inner Cape here, especially the middle as well as the lower Cape. Now, the wind direction, let me erase those arrows. The wind direction is going to be everything. And I think we're really going to see the wind direction mainly from the north or some angle of it, maybe a little north-northwest at times. But remember, Lee is going to be out here somewhere. And you think about how the direction of the winds goes around a hurricane. So we're looking at a north wind that's going to funnel water into the middle Cape as well as to the lower Cape, perhaps. But really, these areas right in here, perhaps around Dennis or East Dennis, would be one of the spots that could see some water surge coming in on the order of 2 to 4 feet. Is the forecast for worst possible scenario. Now, right now, we're looking pretty good everywhere. Of course, the front is through. I mean, overall, our weather is so much better right now than we've had all week long. So enjoy that. We got about, 36 hours of it before we really start to get into some issues because of Lee. 2 to 4 feet, that's the forecast for storm surge. Elsewhere, it's about 1 to 3. The thing is, because we're going to have this north wind, this is not going to be a surge problem for us here in a big way across a lot of coastal Maine, because we're going to be getting that north wind for pretty much the entire event. So that's going to cut back on any significant problems that we would have otherwise had if we had seen the track just a little more to the west and gave us an onshore flow. We won't have that. Now, rainfall-wise, that was all the rain we've seen this week. Big flooding problems with more than 8 to 10 inches of rain there into parts of Massachusetts, Rhode Island already. And we look at what's to come, Alex, the biggest rain is going to be maybe over eastern Maine, over the ocean. But, given our soil moisture and everything else, even an inch of rain, which we're looking at, could cause some problems. So keeping watch on that here in eastern Massachusetts and, of course, into Maine.
Absolutely. Well, of course, the signs towards the north to the New England coast.
These large and dangerous waves are just one of the several reasons why double red flags are flying along the Carolina coast today.
Well, Drew Pearson is the director.
The flags that you have out there, red flags, double rags, what do you have flying right now? And are there any plans to shut down beaches completely?
Well, from Duck to Hatter's Village.
A good point as well about even trying to get to some of these locations could be tough. Now, there's a lack of lifeguards, adding an extra layer of danger for Dare County. How has being understaffed affected your team's responses to emergency situations there at the shores?
Great point there. Now, there's a concern for some coastal flooding. What do you think are the risks in your area when it comes to coastal flooding, especially as the wind speeds start to pick up?
Yeah, we do have a coastal.
Being in the off season now, of course, after the Labor Day, so probably not a whole lot of visitors who are in town. But for those who are in and around town, what's your advice for them here as we head through the next couple of days?
Yeah, we are in the off season, but it's still a busy place. People can find information about the hazards in the ocean, especially here in Dare County, and get it from a local's perspective. We just hope people keep an eye on the weather and stay attuned, whether it's with the Weather Channel or the Weather Service partners or with us.
Yeah, great stuff there. Dare County EMA Director Drew Pearson, thank you so much for your time and joining us this morning. And you can get more on the forecast for Lee as well with our Weather Channel streaming app. Here you can find updated alerts and tracks.
And you also get a chance to find a super stream over our coverage and live cameras there in the heart of the storm. All you have to do is go to
show you that projected cone here getting into the next few days. Short term, it's moving faster than yesterday, but not as fast as it's going to move.
Yeah, this thing's going to start to really pick up speed in the coming days, zipping northbound and then eventually zooming towards the north and the east as well. You notice the wind speeds associated with the system as well. They will be coming down also over the coming days.
Yeah, and we're getting close to getting that new advisory in. But with the last advisory, talking about the fact that by the time we get to Sunday morning, we're probably looking at an extratropical system. So losing its tropical characteristics in this time frame here as it makes that progression.
Now, as that's happening, we're watching how it really expands in nature. So you may not be talking about right around the core where the strongest winds typically are with a tropical system. Not necessarily going to have that, but stronger winds will be a bit farther away. So there's going to be more areas that feel the impacts from the system, even though it may not be as strong in terms of those impacts.
It's always fascinating to me to see how nature just kind of works in tandem. So we've got a front coming off the coast. There, you can kind of see that back edge of the clouds. That's the cold front up there. And you can kind of see how a lot of the cloud cover from Lee is getting drawn up in that direction. Low pressure likes low pressure. They just kind of start to go together.
And that's exactly what is happening there. All right, tropical storm warnings here for us in Bermuda. We've been dealing with tropical storm force wind gusts for most of the morning here, 40, 45 mile per hour wind gusts at times here. And that's kind of what we'll be dealing with for most of the day. Certainly nothing that Bermuda cannot handle, but nonetheless, breezy times expected for the day.
The airport shutting down at noon today in Bermuda. You know, they've been through this a million times, and so they sort of know what to do. Roll out all of the provisions when it comes to preparing for a tropical system.
Buoys around. You can see there's one here closer towards where the center is. 60 mile per hour wind gust there. That's been pretty consistent here over the last couple of hours.
Yes. All right. So let's get into more detail about the track. And, you know, Greg, watching this front to the north, do we think this front's going to have any more impact other than just joining us now from Acadia National Park is Public Affairs Officer Amanda Pollock.
Good morning, Jen. Good morning, Alex. Yeah, that's a great question. We're continuing to monitor things very.
Absolutely. Now, Amanda, the park sits there on miles of really rocky shoreline, and the storm is expected to generate some pretty large waves, the rip currents as well, and that could be concerning for people coming to the park even after the storm.
Yes, that's absolutely.
There's a saying, never turn your back on the ocean. And there's so much of the coastline, of course, right up there against the ocean. So what other impacts should the storm should visitors be on alert for?
Yeah, absolutely. One of our bigger concerns right now are those high winds and
you know, folks that are maybe camping in the park, or any folks there now, and are you anticipating maybe asking them to leave ahead of the storm?
So we're going to be asking
time for Acadia. I imagine getting into that leaf peeping season, that this is a busy time for visitors.
Yes.
Now, speaking of visitors, have you noticed any visitors that have maybe canceled their plans out ahead of Lee, at least so far?
You know, the ocean is so important to actually creating the beauty that is along the coast there in Acadia National Park. And you guys are no stranger to storms. Have you had big impacts in the past where maybe after the storm it took some time to recover?
Yes. So,
and want to give you the chance to tell folks who may be visiting here over the coming days pieces of advice here over the next few days as we continue to monitor Lee.
Excellent. Thank you for raising all the awareness. Amanda Pollock, Public Affairs Officer for Acadia National Park. Thanks again for joining us. We just got a new update, actually, on Hurricane Lee coming in. The latest advice, but like the past hour. That's a lot of work. A lot of work. The waves are going to be rough. And, you know, unless you're on a surfboard, and even then you better be a good surfer, you know, to deal with this. The waves, the rip currents, all going to be a risk.
There you can see it. This is today's forecast. And essentially, we've got the high for a good chunk of the Florida coast, up through the Carolinas as well. Georgia coast, don't want to forget that as well. These areas you really got to be mindful. In fact, I was just noticing the note, Dare County, they're basically shutting it down. The red flag, double reds are up. So just don't get into the water.
When double reds are up, means water is closed for swimming. The beaches themselves, they don't often close the beach. So you just got to, you know, pay attention to the flags and use your common sense. We've got the high surf advisories up there already in spots, even southeastern Virginia, like around Virginia Beach, but all the way down the coast, down past the Space Coast.
Yeah, this is really an up and down the entire East Coast type of situation. Wave heights here for us. You can see closer towards Lee itself, 40-foot wave height showing up there. Of course, as you move out away from that main center of the circulation, the wave heights come down a bit, but still, they're creeping up here for you, even along and just off the southeast coast.
You know, Lee never makes its way any closer to the coast. It's moving north, and that direction of movement is going to stay. But North Carolina sticks out a little bit. So our surf is probably going to be the highest. It could be up over 12 feet.
Absolutely.
Crashing on shore.
Yeah, so again, more reason to not get into those waters. You'll see how this plays out moving into tonight now. Again, more of those higher waves are starting to swell on into the East Coast here for you. And as Jen talked about, some of the higher waves where those areas are jutting out a bit more there. They're around the Outer Banks. And then as we start to move our way through Friday night and into Saturday, you see how things will be improving in terms of some of the bigger wave heights.
Yeah, Sunday will be a better day. We'll see improved conditions out there. And then, of course, up the coast, the rip currents are going to be a factor as well. Still moderate today out there in the Cape, but you'll see conditions start to change rapidly, actually, by tomorrow.